I never thought I'd find myself in a courtroom, facing off against the woman I once promised forever to. But there I was, hands clenched, heart pounding, as my ex-wife stared me down like I was some villain who had abandoned his own child. She had dragged me into court for child support, claiming I'd turned my back on my responsibilities. To her, this case was easy money. A slam dunk. But deep down, I knew something didn't add up, and soon the truth would blow everything wide open. It all started a few months after our divorce. Things between me and my ex had been messy, sure, but I never imagined she'd accuse me of being a deadbeat dad. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. It was a court summons. She was demanding full child support, retroactive payments, and even asking for penalties. She claimed I had fathered her daughter and then disappeared without doing my part. I sat there holding the papers, stunned. Not because I didn't want to support a child, but because, to my knowledge, that child might not even be mine. The little girl she was talking about. I had never met her. Never held her. Never even received a single message saying she was born. And yet, now I was being painted as the bad guy in some emotional drama I hadn't even been allowed to be part of. My friends told me to just pay up and move on, that fighting it would cost me more than it was worth. But something in my gut told me, this wasn't right. And I wasn't going down without the truth. In court, she looked confident. Calm. Like a woman who had already counted the money in her head. Her lawyer made me out to be cold, uncaring, irresponsible. They presented photos of the little girl, and yes, she was beautiful. But when I looked at her, I didn't feel that connection you'd expect from a father. I couldn't explain it, but I knew I had to ask the hard question, the one that made the entire courtroom shift uncomfortably. I requested a DNA test. The judge raised an eyebrow. My ex scoffed, acting like it was just a stalling tactic. But I was serious. I wasn't going to let anyone force me into a role I wasn't even sure was mine to play. And that's when everything started to crumble. My ex's confident smile slowly disappeared. Her lawyer started getting agitated. And for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. When the results came in, no one was ready for what they revealed. But before the judge could even read the findings aloud, my ex stood up in a panic. Her hands were shaking, her face pale. And just like that, the courtroom turned into chaos. What those test results said, it didn't just turn the case upside down. It changed everything I thought I knew about the woman I used to love, and the secrets she had buried deep. The judge looked up from the envelope, clearly caught off guard by my ex-wife's sudden outburst. She had jumped to her feet the moment the DNA results were handed over, like she already knew what was inside. Her lawyer tried to get her to sit down, but she wouldn't listen. Her eyes darted around the room, frantic, restless, as if she was searching for an exit that didn't exist. Meanwhile, I sat there frozen, unsure whether I should feel nervous or relieved. Everything in that courtroom suddenly felt heavier. The silence was loud. The judge cleared his throat, looked at both of us, and said in a firm voice, "We will read these results after a brief recess." Then he stood up and left the bench, giving my ex a chance to breathe. But it was clear that whatever confidence she had before was gone now. She wouldn't even look at me. And that's when I knew. She was hiding something. Something big. As I waited outside the courtroom, my thoughts went spinning back to the beginning, back to the final year of our marriage. Things had been rocky between us, no doubt. We argued more than we laughed. She was always on edge, always texting someone and stepping away to take private calls. At the time, I told myself it was work stress or family stuff. But now, all those little moments felt like warning signs I didn't recognize until it was too late. We had talked about having kids. We even tried for a while, but nothing ever happened. Then out of nowhere, she stopped bringing it up. I thought maybe she had changed her mind. I never questioned it. But now, with a paternity test in play and her panicking in court, I started to wonder, what if she had gotten pregnant during that time, but not with me? I remembered one night in particular. She had come home late, claiming she was out with a friend. Her clothes smelled like someone else's cologne. She brushed it off, laughed at my suspicion, and accused me of being paranoid. I apologized like a fool. I wanted so badly to believe she was being honest. But now, those memories felt different, like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. I watched her from across the hallway as she sat on a bench with her head in her hands. Her lawyer was talking to her in a low voice, clearly trying to do damage control. She kept shaking her head, mumbling something I couldn't hear. I couldn't help but wonder, was she scared of what the DNA test revealed, or scared that I now knew the truth she had worked so hard to hide? I wasn't just angry anymore. I felt betrayed. Not just because she tried to force me into paying child support, but because she used a child, an innocent little girl, as a pawn in whatever scheme she was running. That realization hit me hard. If that child wasn't mine, then who was the father? And why go through all this trouble to pin it on me? The answers were coming. But somehow, I knew that whatever was in those test results was just the beginning of a much bigger mess. The courtroom doors opened again, and everyone filed back in. My stomach was twisted in knots, but I kept a straight face. My ex-wife walked past me slowly, her face drained of color, her hands trembling just enough for me to notice. She didn't meet my eyes. She didn't say a word. I sat down, eyes locked on the judge, waiting for him to speak. The envelope with the DNA test results lay open in his hands, and for a moment, the whole room seemed to hold its breath. But before he could read the results, her lawyer stood up and requested a private sidebar. The judge looked surprised but allowed it. They stepped aside to the corner, whispering in hushed voices. I couldn't hear a thing, but I didn't need to. Her face said it all. She was stalling, desperate to delay the inevitable. That told me one thing clearly: I wasn't the father. Still, I wanted to hear it. I needed to. Because up until now, all I had were suspicions and half-memories. I needed to hear it spoken out loud, something official that would finally confirm what my gut had been screaming for weeks. But then the judge turned back and said the hearing would be continued at a later date, due to new information brought forth by the plaintiff's counsel. I was stunned. They were buying more time. And for what? To twist the story even more? To find a new angle to drag me back into this mess? Outside the courthouse, I caught up with her as she was getting into her car. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just asked one question. Why? She froze, her keys still in her hand. Her eyes met mine for a split second. There was something there, regret maybe, or guilt, but she said nothing and got into the car. Drove off without looking back. Over the next few days, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over everything in my head. The court delay meant more legal fees, more stress, more time waiting for answers. I hired a private investigator. I needed to know who the real father was. If she was lying to me, maybe she was lying to someone else too. I didn't just want out of the case, I wanted the truth. That's when the PI uncovered something strange. A man had been seen with her repeatedly during the last year of our marriage. Not just casual meetups, late-night visits, dinners at hidden places, even weekends away while she told me she was visiting family. The man was someone I recognized. Someone who had once been my friend. And that's when another layer of betrayal sank in. If he was the father, did he even know? Or was she playing both of us, Everything was spiraling. What started as a simple child support claim was turning into something darker, filled with lies, secrets, and twisted motives. And as the next court date approached, I had a feeling the worst was still to come. The night before the second court hearing, I couldn't sit still. My thoughts were racing. Every corner of my apartment felt suffocating. I kept pacing, checking my phone, scrolling through old photos, trying to find some piece of this puzzle I might have missed. There was a time I loved that woman, trusted her. And now, I was preparing to face her again, not as a husband or even a father, but as a man trying to defend himself from the wreckage she'd left behind. The private investigator had sent me more photos, clearer ones. Her and the other man, the one I used to call my friend. Arms around each other, sharing drinks, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. One photo hit me like a punch to the gut. It was him, holding a baby. That same little girl she claimed was mine. He looked at her the way a real father would. And yet here I was, being dragged through court for child support. I didn't understand it. If she knew the real father, why lie? Why go through the trouble of putting me in this position? Was it about money? Revenge? Or something deeper she wasn't saying? That morning, as I walked back into the courthouse, something in the air felt different. He was there this time, the other man. Sitting quietly in the back row, avoiding eye contact with everyone, especially me. My ex-wife walked in shortly after, her head down, her lips pressed into a tight line. She looked like someone who had run out of excuses. I sat in my usual spot, heart pounding. My lawyer leaned over and whispered, "Be ready. I think it's all about to come out." The judge entered, and the room fell silent. This time, there were no delays. No sidebars. The DNA results were already part of the record now, and the judge was ready to address them. My ex kept shifting in her seat, eyes flicking toward the man in the back. Her hands gripped the edge of the table like she was bracing for impact. The judge began reading the report, word by word. I could feel every breath in the room being held. The test results showed that the respondent, he looked up at me briefly, is not the biological father. The courtroom didn't erupt in noise or gasps like in a movie. It was quiet. Too quiet. But in that stillness, everything changed. I looked over at her. She didn't flinch. Didn't cry. Just sat there, staring blankly at the floor. The judge asked her if she had anything to say. She didn't answer. But then, slowly, she turned her head, and looked directly at the man sitting in the back row. And that's when the man stood up. His face pale, fists clenched at his sides. He didn't say a word. Just stared at her like the realization had finally hit him too. What happened next would not only shift the entire case, it would shatter the fragile web of lies that had been holding this whole situation together. The man, my ex-friend, stood there frozen, like he'd just been exposed in front of a spotlight. All eyes turned to him, including mine. For a second, I thought he was going to speak, maybe admit everything, maybe even apologize. But instead, he turned and walked out of the courtroom without saying a word. Just like that. No explanation. No confrontation. Just silence. That should have been the end of it, but something about the way he left, it didn't sit right with me. The judge cleared his throat and turned back to my ex-wife. "Would you like to amend your testimony?" he asked. She didn't respond. She was staring at the courtroom doors like she was trying to hold back a storm. Her lawyer leaned in and whispered something to her, but she didn't react. That same blank expression stayed on her face, except now, I saw something else behind her eyes. Panic. After the session ended, I left the courthouse feeling like I had only just scratched the surface. I wasn't responsible for child support anymore. Legally, I was off the hook. But instead of feeling relief, I felt something worse, curiosity mixed with unease. This wasn't just a lie. This was a carefully planned move, and the fact that the real father had walked away without a fight made it even more suspicious. That night, my phone buzzed with a blocked number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was him. He didn't even say hello. Just started talking in a low, tense voice. I didn't know, he said. She told me it was someone else's kid. I only found out recently. She begged me not to say anything. Then why'd she come after me? I asked, barely containing my anger. He went quiet for a second. Because it's not about money, he finally said. She was trying to cover something. I think there's more going on than either of us knows. And that's when the second twist hit me like a freight train. He told me that a few years ago, before we even split up, she had taken out a large personal loan using forged paperwork. He had recently discovered documents showing she had listed me as a co-signer, without my knowledge. It was a massive amount. And now, creditors were closing in. The court case wasn't just about child support. It was about creating legal leverage. If I had been declared the legal father, she could have made it look like I had a financial obligation, not just to the child, but to debts I never even knew existed. She hadn't just lied about paternity. She had set up an entire trap, one that tied me to her mistakes, her secrets, and her growing web of financial problems. I hung up and sat in the dark for hours, replaying the last few years in my head. Every odd phone call. Every mysterious expense. Every moment I brushed off as nothing. It all made sense now, and it was much worse than I thought. She hadn't dragged me into court just to get money. She was trying to save herself, by sinking me. The next morning, I walked into the courthouse one last time, not as a defendant, not as a father, but as a man ready to end the nightmare once and for all. I had copies of the forged documents the PI helped me dig up. Bank statements, loan papers, and proof that my signature had been copied. It was all there, in black and white. This wasn't just a child support case anymore. This was fraud. She didn't look at me as we sat across from each other. Her face was drained of all the confidence she once carried. Her lawyer looked tense, whispering to her over and over. They knew what was coming. And so did I. The judge opened the session, and my lawyer stood up right away. He presented the evidence, clearly, calmly, no drama. Just facts. The courtroom stayed silent, the air thick with tension. I watched her carefully. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just sat there, her hands clenched in her lap, staring straight ahead like she was waiting for everything to collapse. And it did. The judge flipped through the documents, and let out a heavy sigh. These are serious allegations, he said. If proven true, this case will be referred to criminal court for further action. Her lawyer asked for a recess. The judge agreed, but this time, I wasn't the one sweating. Outside the courtroom, she finally approached me. Her voice was quiet, almost like a whisper. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said. I stared at her, trying to find the woman I used to love. But all I saw was someone I barely recognized, someone who had buried herself so deep in lies that even she couldn't find the way out anymore. Why? I asked. You could have just told the truth. We could have figured something out. But instead, you tried to destroy me. She hesitated, eyes filled with something between regret and exhaustion. I was scared. Everything was falling apart. I thought if I tied you to it, maybe I could buy some time. Maybe I could fix it before it all caught up with me. It was too late for apologies. The damage was done. The judge reconvened and made it official. I was cleared of all responsibility, no child support, no paternity, no legal ties to her or the child. The case was dismissed, pending further investigation into the financial fraud. For the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe. But just when I thought it was over, the twist came. A few days later, I got a letter. Not from the court, but from a private adoption agency. Apparently, my name had been listed as a point of contact for the child's emergency custody by her. In the middle of all this chaos, she had quietly placed the little girl up for adoption, without telling anyone. Not even the real father. And in a strange, twisted way, she had listed me, the man she lied to, as the backup. I held that letter in my hands, heart racing all over again. I didn't know what her endgame was anymore. But one thing was clear. This story wasn't over yet. I sat with that letter for a long time, not sure what to do with it. After everything she had put me through, the lies, the court case, the forged documents, she still somehow dragged me into one last decision. Part of me was furious. Another part of me just felt tired. I had finally cleared my name. The judge had ruled in my favor. I wasn't the father, I wasn't responsible for her debts, and legally, I had no obligation to that child. But that didn't mean the story ended neatly. The letter said the adoption agency needed confirmation about the backup contact she listed, me. They were just doing their part. It wasn't a demand. It was a question. Do you want to be involved or not? And that question haunted me. I remembered holding that baby once. Just once. Back when I thought she was mine. She smiled at me, reached for my finger, and in that moment I thought I had a future with her. I thought I had a reason to fight through everything. But now, knowing she wasn't mine, should I just walk away? I called the agency. Told them the truth. I explained what happened, that I wasn't the father, that the mother had acted without my knowledge. They were understanding. Professional. They thanked me for the call and assured me that the child would be placed with a family ready to give her everything she needed. After I hung up, there was a strange sense of peace. Not happiness. Not closure in the way most people imagine it. Just acceptance. Some stories don't wrap up with a perfect ending. Some people leave behind a mess you can't fully clean. But I had made it through. And I hadn't let her lies define me. Weeks passed. Then months. The fraud case moved forward, and last I heard, she had agreed to a plea deal. She avoided jail time but was ordered to pay restitution and attend counseling. The man she had been seeing, the real father, never stepped forward. He vanished just as quickly as he appeared. I didn't blame him. Some people run when the truth gets heavy. As for me, I started over. Slowly. I changed my number. Took some time off work. Reconnected with people I had pushed away while I was drowning in court dates and legal fees. I even started seeing someone new, not rushing anything, just being honest and open in a way I hadn't been before. What happened taught me more than I expected. About trust. About boundaries. About knowing when to fight and when to walk away. But most of all, it reminded me that the truth always finds its way out, even if it takes time. So no. I didn't pay child support. I wasn't the father. And she didn't get away with it. But the real victory wasn't in what the court said. It was in finally getting my life back.